All of Us Strangers tells the story of a writer living alone in his London apartment who falls in love with one of his neighbours. He confides in him about the sudden death of his parents from when he was 12 years old. Then, one day, whilst passing the house he grew up in, he finds his parents still living there, a moment in time seemingly frozen in amber.
Hi.
Hi.
When the film opens, we see Andrew Scott's character silently being by himself in his high-rising apartment as he gently watches the world go on by. This is an experience that is so true to life living in London as a lonely writer. As we see him through the high-rising flat windows, I'm reminded of this shot from Tom Ford's film A Single Man of Colin Firth sat quietly like he's in a glass box.
For the first time in my life, I can't see my future. Every day goes by in a haze.
A striking image that stays with me because, in many ways, it's so apt in describing the isolating feeling of being a gay man. In a way, this movie is meditating on the idea of gay solitude, and very gently trying to unravel Andrew Scott's traumatised character. It feels as if this was built into every aspect of the filmmaking, with the lighting gently floating over the characters just as ideas and memories trickle through their brains. It's a film that explores loss and trauma, and it's therefore gentle in this approach. But what I found quite interesting is there's a fair bit of humour in this film. The approach doesn't change though, so it's a very gentle style of humour, awkward moments and teasing, and a quiet politeness that you can only really find amongst British people. Andrew Scott and Paul Mescal have really great screen chemistry. I love the way in which these two characters meet. Paul Mescal's character bumps into him whilst drunk, and reveals a little too much about how he feels about the man standing in front of him.
Drink. It's Japanese. It's meant to be the best in the world, but I couldn't tell you why. So.
No thanks.
Okay, okay, how about I come in anyway? If not for a drink, then for whatever else you might want.
I think that's a good idea.
Don't scare you.
He then has to meet him again for a take two, which is part reintroduction, part apology. I love watching this clumsiness between them, which feels deeply authentic and relatable. When I think about people I know who have lost a closely related loved one, particularly when it's a very sudden loss, I often hear the same phrase being spoken. They are now forever frozen in time at that age. The paradox of living with loss is that there comes a time when the age gap closes and now you are the same age as that older sibling or that parent. That is an incredibly difficult transgression to process and feels inherently wrong. The film personifies and confronts this particular specific feeling, with Andrew Scott talking to parents who are around his age or perhaps younger and are clearly frozen in the 1980s. To them, he is their little boy, and in many ways they still see him as that. He has to completely reintroduce himself to them and explain the modern world to them. It's far bigger than any simple coming out scene. It's an exploration and an explaining of one's entire coming of age in a new and strange modern world. There are quite a few twists and turns in this film, which I will not spoil. I will, however, say that as the more you start questioning what you're seeing, the more you account for the surprises that don't add up. You'll process what makes sense and what doesn't. If you keep doing this, you'll start to realise that perhaps it doesn't matter. If you start to let go of what makes sense and what doesn't, the more you allow yourself to feel the moment happening on screen. You allow this moment to last. This is what All of Us Strangers is entirely about. I saw this film at a sold-out screening at the London Film Festival last year, and there was a really magical moment where the audience gave the film a round of applause. But we weren't clapping at the end of the film, but just before the movie ended. It was as if the movie knew it was ending, but it didn't want to end. And we knew it was ending, but we didn't want it to end. I think this film is an exemplary triumph in queer cinema, but also British cinema in general. I also think cinema is best served when it takes audiences on a journey through a character's memory and psychology. Film as memory. So I saw this film several months ago, and I suppose now the character's memories have become my own. The more distance I've been from the film, the more I've truly come to appreciate it. So if you haven't seen this film, I thoroughly encourage you go to the cinema, be wrapped up with the sound and the visuals, and when the credits have finished rolling and you're on your way home, allow yourself to just sit with this film. This is how I saw it, and I believe this is exactly the way it was meant to be appreciated. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, the best way of showing it is by subscribing and leaving a like on the video. In terms of the proportion of people watching who are actually subscribers, YouTube showed me this graph. I don't like this graph, but I do like talking about films, and by subscribing, it genuinely makes me feel encouraged to keep talking about films. If there's an audience out there, then I'm excited to make videos. Have you seen All of Us Strangers? Leave a comment below and let me know what you thought of it. I read all the comments. And to wrap up this video, I'm going to leave you with this interview with Andrew Scott about what a film like All of Us Strangers would have meant to him if he had got to see it growing up. I think he puts it beautifully.
Well, because the idea of a film like this existing to watch when I was growing up and a boy and being so fearful and so full of shame and so scared was just not something I ever dreamed I would get to watch, let alone be at the center of it, and to put so much of my own experience and my own self into this, and for that to be seen by people, and for it to be so raw and tender, and for that to be of use to people and to move people is so miraculous to me that it gets me every time, because it's the purpose of art. It's what the purpose of it is.